It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. I'm excited to be talking with my guest today. Joining me is Gerhardt Gschwandtner, founder and CEO of Selling Power Magazine and CEO of the Sales 3.0 conferences, which many of you may have attended already. If not, you should definitely put that on your calendar. Gerhard, welcome to Accelerate.
Thank you, Andy. It's an honor to be with you. I've watched a lot of your interviews and listened to them, and I think you have a mindset that's driven by curiosity.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that mindset. But first, before I jump into mindset, which is going to be the topic today, is tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, how'd you get your start in sales, and how'd you end up publishing Selling Power Magazine?
Well, I grew up in Austria, and I always was impressed by salespeople. I remember the first successful salesperson I've ever met. I was in a coffee house in Salzburg, and he was sitting there having a glass of champagne in the morning. And my friend and I, we got to talk with him, and I said, I was curious, what are you doing? What are you celebrating? And he says, well, I had a great week. I sold in today's dollars, and maybe like $50,000 worth of stuff. I said, what are you selling? He says, washing machines. I said, well, how can you make that much money with washing machines? He says, I let the customer do the walking. And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, I invite people to a hotel, I display the product, and I talk to about 40 or 50 people at a time, and I usually sell 30% of the people. So he was a showman, and he did magnificent presentations. And he went through a little spiel with us and showed us the presentation. He wanted to recruit us to help him sell. So I was really impressed by that, and I filed this away. I was in an amateur theater group, so I became an actor part-time. And then I learned how to direct. And I really enjoyed the whole process of directing people and helping people step into a role. And later, when I got the responsibility for sales training for a multinational French company headquartered in Paris, I helped salespeople literally impersonate a professional.
Right. So what was the product you were selling at that time in Paris?
Construction equipment. And it was from $50,000 to $1 million.
Right.
And we trained 1,600 salespeople across the world in 41 different countries, and we created sales training material in 4 languages. And I traveled all over the world and ended up in the United States. And after 2 years working with them in the United States, I started my own company, Gerhardt Gschwandtner and Associates, and I did sales training for other companies.
Got it.
And then my wife had twins, and she says, well, you're traveling all the time. Is there a way where you can make money without traveling and teaching people? And I said, sure. I designed a course, and I sold it through direct mail. And it worked okay, but it didn't get me off the road. So I thought maybe I revised the formula. So I came up with the idea of creating a newsletter that I called Selling Power. And I sent it out to sell my course, and people liked it. Then I changed the format to a newspaper because it was cheaper to print on. And I called it Personal Selling Power at the time.
Sure, I remember that.
Right. And it was designed to sell my course. But then people wanted more copies. And, over time, I realized I can charge subscription money. And then I committed to 6 times a year. And it was in 1980 where I said in 81, we come up with 6 issues, sent me $12 for a subscription. And by the end of that year, I had 7,500 subscribers. And then it became the biggest sales management publication in the country. And then, I still love training people because I've interviewed so many super successful people, like billionaires, like Mark Benioff or Michael Dell or Mark Cuban, Richard Branson, Mary Kay. There are a lot of really fascinating people. And I always was curious about their mindset. What's going on through their mind? How do they think about the world? How do they think about sales? How do they think about success? And what I discovered over the years in discussing it with psychologists and doing research, that it's really the mindset that shapes the salesperson's skill set. And sales success to me is a combination of the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right tool set.
But the mindset comes first. That's the baseline.
That's the baseline. And a lot of people have sort of their mindset on automatic.
I would say that's most problem.
They're not mindful, they're mindless.
Right.
Because mindful people, they're focusing on the present moment. They're aware of themselves, they're aware of the other person. And the average salesperson really is either preoccupied about the past, so that's something that was troubling 5 minutes ago or 5 days ago, is still in their present moment aware. And a lot of people are worried about the future, what may happen tomorrow or 5 years from now. And that kind of mindset is not very conducive to understanding the customer, because they don't understand themselves. So how can they understand the customer? In our world, it's all about next, versus now. What is important now? How can we focus on the present moment and make the best of the present moment?
So if this is the foundation, so why is this not something that's sort of routinely taught? I mean, if we go look at the sales training curriculum of sales trainers across the country, if not the world, the focus is all on skills or process, but rarely on mindset.
And look at the stats. How much traction does skills training get? How many?
Not much at all.
Right. Within 3 to 6 weeks, 80% or 90% of the skills that they have learned are now being applied. It's almost like New Year's resolutions. You make them on December 31st, and by February 15th, the gyms are empty again.
Right. Well, so if you're training people on mindset, and I get into some of the research that you've talked about and some of the things you've written, but isn't the same thing sort of true if you're teaching mindset or teaching the behaviors that follow a mindset? It still has to be put into practice, right? It still has to be some sort of repetition involved with adopting a mindset, I would assume.
Right. I think the biggest level is when people understand that there's an inner CEO. There is that prefrontal cortex right up here above your eyes, which is the location of the executive function of the brain.
Yeah, you just called it the CEO of the brain.
We call it the inner CEO.
Right.
And the inner CEO has the power of awareness. You can look at situations from different perspectives.
Right.
And you can assess a situation in a way that it becomes self-enhancing instead of self-destructive. A lot of people, when they're under pressure, they see a threat versus seeing an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And the inner CEO has two functions. One is to understand the foundation of your mindset and make better decisions in the future and create a platform for growth. And the second function of the inner CEO is to grow in areas where they haven't grown before. One area would be no-limit thinking. And for example, do you play golf?
Badly.
Okay. So one of the people in our course, she asked about, how does it apply to golf? And no-limit thinking is about not telling yourself that you suck at golf. No-limit thinking means that if you're on a par 3, that you can actually reach the green on a par 3, or that you could shoot a hole-in-one. Right. So if you tell yourself, I can shoot a hole-in-one, then all of a sudden your belief system changes, your behavior changes, your action changes. And that woman actually applied this on the golf course and shot a hole in one 3 days after, doing that course.
Right.
And it's the same with salespeople, where they say, well, this year I have a goal of $1 million. So why not think in unlimited terms and ask yourself, what would happen if I had a goal 300% more? What if I did $3 million? Then all of a sudden the thinking changes. Do I need to call on the same accounts? Or do I need to call on different accounts? Probably you want to go high up the food chain, call on C-level, and then work backwards and say, what do I need to do? Who do I need to call? What conversations do I need to have? What levels do I need to push? So then people set goals that are far beyond where they are at the present moment.
Well, I think I was going to insert there for a second. I think for people listening, I think one of the things that, to me, a really important aspect of what you're talking about is that you talk about how research has shown that some of these belief systems are being formed, starting from the moment we're born, and that it gets back to this thing. This is really, environment is really important. I mean, this is a case of nurture versus nature.
Right. I
mean, nature is not your destiny.
Right. I give you another example. I interviewed Cal Ripken, and he has an amazing record of 2,632 consecutive games.
Right, Major League Baseball. Right.
He went way past Lou Gehrig's record by over 500 games. Mm-hmm. And I had that conversation with him about his belief system. And he says, well, I believe in a strong work ethic. I believe in showing up. And it's not just about, honoring your teammates and being there for them, but also it's a commitment to be the best you can be. Mm-hmm. So then I said, let's peel back the layer of the onion. And he says, I said, where do those beliefs come from? You don't wake up one day and say, I want to be a consistent performer. No, it comes actually from influences in childhood where children watch their parents, they watch their mom, they watch their dad, their caretakers, their siblings, family members, and then they become aware of how the world works. And Cal Ripken Sr., his dad, was a baseball coach.
Yes.
He drilled into him that work ethic, and so he understood the relationship between a good work ethic and action steps and success. So when we work with people, we talk about what is it that you want to do, where do you want to be, and what are your goals, what are your dreams, and we actually encourage salespeople to cut out pictures, put them on their walls, like in many offices, there's a scoreboard. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, you have a dream board right next to it. So you show your vacation home, you show the Bugatti that you want to drive, or whatever it is, or your sailboat, or your family going to college, your kids going to college. Create those images. So you want to visualize your dreams. Then the conversation changes in the office from scoring to achieving dreams, and then they call themselves the dream team. They help each other win. And this is the magic, that it's not just the goal setting, but we also have deeper conversation about the why. Why do you want to achieve what you are saying you want to achieve? And the bigger the why, the bigger the try, the easier the how. And then we have action steps. But we don't stop there. We go a level deeper because we know that dreams are fleeting, and every day people get exposed to about 60,000 thoughts.
Okay.
And 80% of them are negative. So you have this little goal marching against this avalanche of thoughts that enter their minds that make them forget about the goal. So what we do is in order to grow, you need a partner. You need somebody who believes in you. So we help them assign an accountability body. So they talk to each other on a weekly basis and say, this is what I've achieved. Those are the difficulties I have encountered. Give me the benefit of your thinking. How would you approach a situation that I'm in right now? So two heads are better than one. And if you process your experiences through somebody else's brain, they'll look from the outside in. They'll see things differently that can help you gain perspective.
Right.
And then you can find new ways in dealing with the challenges that you're facing. But there's another thing. There is a cadence to success, and you want to be in that flow where you have sort of a voice in the back of your mind where I say, well, next week when I talk to Andy, I want to tell him about that success story. I want to make a commitment now to reach that weekly goal so that I can feel proud when I talk to Andy and report about my success.
Right. So a question for you. So let's talk about, people that need to develop a new belief system, if you will.
Right.
Need to modify the one they have. Is because I think people sort of tend to think that, hey, I'm going to just flip the switch and I have this epiphany and suddenly it's different. I mean, it's not that simple.
Right.
So what are sort of the steps, right? The basics. If somebody comes to one of your courses and says, look, I want to become like Dan Waldschmidt, who we all both know. He's incredibly motivated, inspirational figure. How do I, incredibly positive, how do I develop that type of mindset? From where I am today.
There are three things. One is the understanding the foundation of your mindset, and there are three levels. One is the implanted mindset, which is what you get from your parents and caretakers. So as a kid, we watch our parents, we look up to them. They look really big, they know everything, they don't have any pain, they don't have emotions like we do, and they know exactly what's what. Mm-hmm. And they give us the do's and don'ts. So that's the implanted mindset. And we become little puppets of our parents for a while. And then we go to school, and then we have the imprinted mindset. We get exposed to teachers, to coaches, to role models, to mentors in a job. Mm-hmm. And those are imprinted mindset is people that impress us, that leave an impression on us. And we play with their behaviors, or we simulate, we integrate some of their ideas into our belief system. So we already begin to change our parents' belief systems through the exposure to people that impress us.
Right.
And there's a third level, which is the inspired mindset. Inspired is the little inner voice that tells us we are special, we have a talent, where we want to make a commitment to developing that talent. Like you have the talent of curiosity. So you are using that talent by interviewing interesting people and sharing that information with a lot of other people. So that's sort of in a nutshell, the mindset system that the inner CEO needs to examine. So let's say you want to change a belief about your work. And let's say you like to goof off, you like to party a lot. And so you want to find out, what is my belief system? How was it formed? Am I more influenced by my mom or my dad? And in your case, it was your mom that read a lot of books. And
exactly,
you saw her smile when she had a book, and she was happy. So you said, I want to try that. So that's a good thing. And when you think about the implanted mindset, think of it like a garden that has flowers, that has fruit trees, that has a lot of good stuff, but also it has a lot of weeds.
Right.
So you want to make a decision to stop watering the weeds and continue to water the flowers. So you don't perpetuate the negative habits or the things that hold you back. And you want to take a sheet and say, this is my belief system about work.
Actually, write it down.
Write it down and say, well, is my belief system helping me reach my goals? And if it isn't, then you ask yourself more questions. Is my desire to party helping me act on the belief that hard work is a good thing for reaching success? Is that behavior of partying helping me reach my goals? And how is that serving me? So if you have that analysis, the belief assessment, that you become much clearer about the beliefs and the conflicts that you have with your beliefs in reality, then you become more congruent and you become more consistent in the pursuit of success.
But one of the issues people have, though, is even if they're sort of embedded in sort of bad behaviors, is a certain comfort level in knowing those behaviors, right, that they have with them. That's what makes it so difficult to change. So how do you help people sort of overcome that fear of change in going through this process?
Right. And that's where the conversation with other people comes into play. I'll give you an example. There's Bob Carr, the founder of Heartland Payment Systems. He started the company by raising $1 million, and in 10 years, he built a $1 billion company, went on the New York Stock Exchange, and he sold the company in 2016 for $4.3 billion, and he became a very wealthy man.
Right.
I interviewed him a couple of times and also read his book, and where he talks about his mom and his dad. And his mom was a well-adjusted, very loving, supportive woman. His dad was not a model citizen, and he left the family when he was like 13. And Bob Carr said, I had a challenge because growing up without a dad, with a dad that was self-destructive and abusive at times, is a curse. So you have a choice to say, well, I want to buck the trend and do something constructive with my life, or give up and get depressed and self-medicate for the rest of your life, which a lot of people do.
Sure.
So he had that idea, that curiosity that you have. I want to learn from U.S. presidents. So he studied the best U.S. presidents and adopted them like surrogate fathers and say, how would Woodrow Wilson handle this problem? Well, what would Jefferson say about this? And or James Madison.
Right.
He studied people that inspired him. Right. And that was sort of a shift from the implanted mindset to the imprinted mindset. So if you have a challenge, and if you're listening to this, and you don't want to step out of your implanted mindset system, expose yourself to people that you admire, that have the job that you want to have in the future, or do the work that you want to do in the future.
Right.
So you start out with the future vision and then work backwards and say, what are the 6 or 7 people I want to learn from? I want to study, read their biographies, watch their videos, listen to their speeches, listen to their audio podcasts, and then begin the process slowly of transformation. You can't do it overnight, and you need a lot of support.
And so if somebody's an individual, let's say they don't have the structure to have an accountability partner, which I think is a really important thing on a coach or an accountability partner, where are they going to find that? I mean, there are coaches I know that are out there. I mean, is there any sort of specific recommendation?
I want to give you an example. Sure. I did a peak performance mindset workshop 2 weeks ago in Los Angeles, and I had 175 sales managers in the room. Mm-hmm. And I asked people, what are your goals and dreams? And there was a young guy, a young manager, who I asked him, what are your goals? And he says, I want to make $1 million. And I said, well, that's kind of vague. Give me more. Why do you want $1 million? He says, well, I want to get married. I want to create a family. I want to build a house. So there was some structure to the dream. What is the time frame? What do you make right now versus when you're going to make $1 million? Mm-hmm. So he said, well, 3 years. And I said, well, do you have an idea who can help you with that goal so you can reach it? Accountability partner. He says, I don't know. And I said, well, what would you guess? How many people in this room of 175 people, of your peers, do you think would be willing to help you get there and be an accountability partner? He says, maybe 3 or 5. And I said, well, now let's test that reality. I asked the audience, how many in this room would be willing to invest time to help this young manager grow to that level? There were about 28 hands, we counted them. And I said, you see how many secret Santas you have out there? And you thought there were less than a handful. So we are underestimating constantly, and we have a sort of irrational belief that we are all alone in this world, and we are not.
Right.
There's so many people that are willing to help. So all you have to do is ask.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be people you necessarily even work with, as you found out in that workshop.
Right. See, the thing is, we make our mindsets make the world more complicated and more difficult because we have a belief system that we're all alone and life is really hard, life is really difficult, and the opposite is true. Life is much easier when you have a good support system, and that's easily built because people want to help each other.
Well, here's a question for you. So, I mean, you see the same trends I do in sales. We certainly in certain segments of the sales business, we've seen over the last few years sort of the increased emphasis on process and sales technology that almost seems like it's being put forth as a substitute for mindset.
Well,
just follow the process,
right,
do the numbers, and it's all going to happen.
Well, I think that technology is mindless and it accelerates everything, and technology is a wonderful thing. However, we need to keep in mind that sales is a people business and not a technology business. If it were a people business, we would have every company sell like Amazon, where there's no salesperson. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't exist. And a lot of people get educated by their IT departments, follow the process, make so many dials, talk to, let's say, 18 people, prospects a day, and you make $80,000 or $100,000 a year. And that's sort of the proposition.
Right.
And people think that maybe social media is the way to prospect. Where the reality is, people want to talk to people. So you can make a lot of cold calls. I just did an interview with 4 luminaries, with Anthony Iannarino, mm-hmm. With Jeff Blount, right. Mark Hunt, and Mike Weinberg. And they said all the same. They all have best-selling books out there. Right. But there's the same thing, that technology is creating the illusion that we don't need to work anymore, that we don't need to pick up the phone. And we had this conversation on the Sunday, and I said to Jeb, why don't you take out your phone and dial a number, anybody, and sell them something. Let's see what you can do with a non-planned, out of the blue call. And he picked one person, he dialed, and we sold him 5 books on the spot.
On a Sunday.
On a Sunday.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting.
Well, I think that there is a term called machine learning. We're moving towards sales 3.0.
Sure.
There's a lot of analytics. There's a lot of artificial intelligence out there. Data science do less. We need to bake in humanity into the conversation with the customer and not automate everything.
Right.
And we cannot automate the heart.
Well, I mean, first of all, as you point out early on, so, people are very complex. And even in relatively simple products you're selling, there's a complex individual talking to another complex individual. There's a lot of things in there that machine learning won't necessarily pick up. Or AI.
I would say that if you took $1 million and you have a good technology platform right now, and put the $1 million in more technology versus put the $1 million in creating peak performance mindsets, I would bet that the $1 million invested in a peak performance mindset is going to give you like a 50x ROI versus more technology, because we are entering an age that is becoming more unstable, more insecure. There's so many blatant security breaches with technology. So making machines better is, in my opinion, an investment in fantasy, versus making people better is making an investment in reality.
So last question for you then is, you've been in sales training for a long time, and, you've dealt with, as I have, thousands of people, individuals. Is there any way that some of these lessons you're teaching about mindset and so on, is there any way they can sort of be carried over from generation to generation? Because it seems like, part of the issue, you pick up any sales book and it's, basically talking about things that were talked about decades ago, right? I mean, it's how do we get some continuity so that we fundamentally change the culture?
We need more modalities. Like 20 years ago, you still had positive thinking versus negative thinking. Mm-hmm. You had being creative versus not being creative. What psychology is teaching us now is in neuroscience, there's so much research out there that blows your mind what is possible. And what we have created with the Peak Performance Mindset is 12 modalities that we all put together into one course that you cannot escape the learning. You cannot escape the aha moments where you learn more than just thinking positive thoughts. That's simple. But how to deal with your belief system, how to change that, how to become a no-limit thinker, how to regulate yourself emotionally or self-activate, how to find better meaning. Those are more difficult conversations, but very productive conversations. And people engage 100%, and everybody says, this is life-changing.
Excellent. All right. Well, Gerhard, thank you for being on the show today. So tell people how they can find out more about one of your peak performance workshops or connect with you.
Well, follow me on Twitter, Gerhardt20. Send me an email, g@sellingpower.com. Go on the Mindset Science website, www.mindsetscience.com.
Okay.
And find everything. You can watch like 50 videos and educate yourself.
Excellent. Good. Well, Gerhard, again, thank you for being on the show today. And friends, thank you for spending this time with us. Remember, make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And one easy way to do that is to take a moment and join these conversations I have every day with top business experts like my guest today, Gerhardt Gschwandtner, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks again for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.